It was a quiet morning in the small sunlit house where the Roberts family lived. The soft hum of the air conditioner filled the living room, mixing with the distant chirping of birds outside. But inside, the atmosphere was heavy, weighed down by months of worry, fear, and exhaustion. Sarah and David Roberts had been living a life they never imagined, one filled with constant care and endless concern for their only son, Ethan. Ethan had always been full of life, a bright and energetic teenager who loved playing soccer, running around with friends and laughing at the simplest jokes. But all of that changed in an instant, one rainy evening when a car accident left him paralyzed from the waist down. The accident was sudden, cruel, and completely unprepared for. David still remembered the phone call that had shattered their world. The emergency responder's voice had sounded distant, as if it belonged to another universe. "Sir, your son has been in a serious accident. You need to come immediately." In those few seconds, the Roberts' lives had turned upside down. The hospital was a blur of white walls, machines, and doctors, speaking in terms that neither of them fully understood at the time. And when they finally saw Ethan lying on the hospital bed, tubes and wires surrounding him, his usual bright eyes clouded with pain and confusion, their hearts broke in ways they never thought possible. Months had passed since that day, and the Roberts family had tried everything to help Ethan adjust. They had doctors, physical therapists, and counselors working tirelessly with him. But while his physical health had slowly stabilized, the emotional toll was far greater than they had expected. Ethan spent most of his time in bed, staring blankly at the ceiling or scrolling through his phone, disconnected from the world he had loved so much. His friends had drifted away, unsure how to interact with him now that he moved differently and needed constant assistance. Even small daily routines had become monumental tasks. Simple things like getting dressed, reaching for a glass of water, or even turning in bed required help, patience, and careful planning. Sarah often sat beside him, brushing his hair, adjusting pillows, and trying to keep his spirits up. "We'll find a way to make this better, Ethan," she would say softly, her hand holding his. Sometimes he would nod, sometimes he would shrug, but mostly he would remain silent. David, meanwhile, worked long hours at his job to ensure the bills were paid, the medical equipment was up to date, and the house was safe for their new reality. Every evening he would come home, tired and worn, but he never let Ethan see his exhaustion. Instead, he would sit at the edge of the bed, telling stories about his day, hoping to spark a smile, a laugh, or even a small reaction that would show life was still possible. But days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, and the silence in the house became heavier. Even the walls seemed to echo the loss of energy that had once filled the space. It was not just Ethan who was struggling. Sarah and David felt trapped in a cycle of hope and disappointment. They tried encouraging him to attend therapy sessions, participate in school activities online, or even join a support group for kids with disabilities. Ethan would agree initially, but most of the time he lost interest quickly. The spark that had once defined him was dim, and they didn't know how to light it again. One particularly quiet afternoon, Sarah was sitting on the couch with a cup of tea, staring out the window. She watched a small group of children playing soccer in the park nearby, their laughter carrying over the distance. Her heart ached. She remembered how Ethan had loved soccer, how he used to run faster than anyone, scoring goals and celebrating with friends. She tried to imagine him there, laughing, carefree, full of energy. And then the reality hit her like a cold wave. He couldn't do those things anymore. Not in the same way, not the way they had once known him. David joined her silently, sitting down and taking her hand. "We can't give up," he said quietly, though his voice trembled with the weight of their shared struggle. "There has to be something, some way to bring him back, even just a little." They both knew that medical treatments could only go so far. Physical recovery had its limits, and while therapy could help with mobility, it could not replace the joy, the sense of independence, or the emotional healing that Ethan so desperately needed. They were searching for something beyond medicine, beyond therapy, something that could touch the heart in a way nothing else had. That evening, after putting Ethan to bed, the couple sat in the living room with their laptops, scouring the internet for ideas. They searched for motivational stories, therapy methods, and even unusual treatments. Hours passed as they clicked from page to page, reading about families who had found creative ways to help their disabled children feel joy and regain confidence. Some stories were inspiring, others heartbreaking, but one idea began to stand out: the use of service dogs to assist children and teens with physical disabilities. They read story after story of dogs trained to help paralyzed individuals with daily tasks, from picking up objects to providing emotional support. What caught their attention most was not just the practical help, but the profound emotional bond these animals formed with their humans. Children who had been withdrawn and sad began to smile again, laugh, and interact with the world around them. They learned to trust, to find joy in small moments, and to regain a sense of independence. Sarah felt a flutter of hope. Could a dog do the same for Ethan? Could a four-legged companion bring the light back into his eyes? David was skeptical at first. "It's not that simple," he said, rubbing his temples. "He's still adjusting, and we don't even know if he'll like a dog or if it will help." But Sarah was persistent. "We have to try something," she insisted. "He's lost so much already. Even if it's just a little, even if it's just one small smile. Isn't it worth trying?" The next few days were filled with calls, emails, and research. They reached out to organizations that trained service dogs, asking about programs for paralyzed teens. They learned that some dogs were specifically trained to assist with mobility, provide emotional support, and even help with therapy exercises. They discovered stories of teenagers who had become more engaged, more confident, and happier simply through the companionship of a loyal dog. With each story, their hope grew. Finally, after weeks of planning, they contacted a local service dog organization that specialized in German Shepherds. They were told about a young dog named Max, energetic yet calm, trained to sense emotions, provide stability, and assist with mobility. The description sounded almost too perfect. Could one dog truly make a difference? They would soon find out. That night, as they prepared for the meeting with Max, the house felt different. There was a quiet anticipation in the air, a subtle energy that had been missing for months. Sarah and David exchanged nervous glances, both wondering how Ethan would react. Would he even want the dog? Would it be another disappointment? Yet beneath the worry there was a spark of hope, a hope that perhaps finally something could change. As they went to bed that night, the Roberts family felt a mixture of fear and excitement. For the first time in months, they allowed themselves to imagine a future where laughter returned, where joy filled the house, and where Ethan might once again feel connected to life. They didn't know exactly what would happen, but they were ready to take the first step. Tomorrow, Max would arrive, and with him, the possibility of something miraculous. In the quiet darkness of the bedroom, Ethan slept, unaware of the plans his parents had made. His eyes, once dull and heavy with sadness, flickered slightly in his sleep. Somewhere deep inside, perhaps, there was still a spark waiting to be reignited, and tomorrow, the Roberts family hoped, that spark would catch fire with the arrival of a four-legged friend who might just change everything. The next morning, the sun rose softly over the quiet neighborhood, bathing the Roberts home in a warm golden light. It was a day that carried a mix of excitement and nervousness. Today they would meet Max, the German Shepherd that had the potential to change their son's life. Sarah woke early, her heart pounding with anticipation. She moved around the house carefully, making sure everything was in order. Ethan's room was tidy, blankets neatly folded, and the wheelchair positioned so that the day's activities could begin smoothly. Every detail mattered. She wanted the house to feel welcoming and safe for both her son and the dog. David was already up, sipping coffee at the kitchen table. He stared out the window, trying to calm his nerves. He thought about all the possibilities, both good and bad. What if Ethan didn't like Max? What if the dog was too energetic or too intimidating? He shook his head, pushing the worries aside. "We won't know until we try," he murmured to himself, though even he struggled to feel fully confident. This was uncharted territory for the family. No one could promise that a dog would instantly fix what had been broken by months of struggle and pain. As the clock ticked closer to the scheduled meeting, Sarah and David went over every detail of what they had been told by the service dog organization. Max had been trained to assist paralyzed teens in many ways. He could help with small physical tasks like retrieving objects or providing stability during exercises. He was also trained to sense emotions, offering comfort during moments of sadness, frustration, or anxiety. The organization had emphasized that the first meeting was critical. The dog needed to form a connection with Ethan, and the family needed to observe and learn how to support that bond. When the doorbell rang, Both parents felt a sudden jolt of nerves. Sarah opened the door to find a tall man from the organization standing there, holding the leash of a large, sleek German shepherd. Max's fur was glossy, his eyes intelligent and calm, yet filled with a subtle energy. He wagged his tail slightly but remained composed, sensing the careful tension in the room. "Good morning," the trainer said warmly. "This is Max. He's ready to meet Ethan. Take your time. Let him approach on his own terms." Sarah led the trainer and Max to Ethan's room, where he lay propped up against pillows, scrolling through his phone. At first, he didn't notice the visitors. The room was silent except for the soft whir of the fan and the occasional click of his phone. David cleared his throat softly. "Ethan, we have someone we want you to meet," he said gently. Ethan looked up slowly, curiosity mixing with skepticism. He was used to strangers, but the anticipation in his parents' voices made him pause. Max stepped forward cautiously, lowering his head to Ethan's level. The dog sniffed the air, observing him carefully. There was something in the calm, steady gaze of the German shepherd that seemed to reach past the walls Ethan had built around himself. For a moment, Ethan froze. He had not expected a dog of this size and presence. His hands twitched slightly as he wondered what he should do. The trainer whispered softly, encouraging patience. "Let him come to you. Don't force it. Dogs feel emotions. They will respond if you remain calm and open." Sarah's heart raced as she watched. Max inched closer, tail wagging slowly, eyes locked on Ethan. Then, without warning, the dog nudged Ethan's hand gently with his nose. It was a small gesture, but it carried enormous weight. Ethan's eyes widened in surprise. He didn't pull away. Instead, he let the dog touch him, his fingers brushing Max's soft fur. Something shifted in that instant, a quiet acknowledgement of presence and curiosity. David watched, barely able to breathe. "He likes him," he whispered to Sarah. But Sarah knew it wasn't just liking. There was a deeper connection forming, something unspoken, almost magical. Ethan, who had been withdrawn and quiet for months, was now engaged. He tentatively reached out and patted Max on the head. The dog leaned into the touch, resting his chin gently on Ethan's hand. The boy's lips curled slightly, a hint of a smile, faint but real. The trainer encouraged small interactions. "Max can help him with simple exercises," he explained. "Start by letting him reach for objects. Max will assist if needed. But more importantly, watch how they communicate." Ethan followed the trainer's guidance hesitantly, asking Max to pick up a small ball. To his amazement, Max gently grabbed it in his mouth and placed it near Ethan's wheelchair. The boy's eyes lit up with a mixture of surprise and delight. He did it!" Ethan exclaimed softly, almost in disbelief. For the next hour, Ethan and Max continued to interact. Max nudged him, rested against him, and responded to subtle cues. Every small success seemed to chip away at the walls Ethan had built around himself. His laughter, quiet at first, began to emerge in small bursts. Sarah and David exchanged glances, their eyes misty with relief. For the first time in months, the house felt lighter, filled with energy that had been missing for so long. The trainer explained the long-term plan. Max would visit regularly, gradually becoming a permanent companion. He would assist Ethan with daily routines, encourage him during therapy, and provide emotional support whenever needed. The trainer emphasized that patience was essential. The bond between dog and boy would strengthen over time, growing into a partnership that could transform not only Ethan's physical capabilities, but also his emotional well-being. As the visit concluded, Ethan hugged Max tightly, feeling the warmth and loyalty of the dog's body pressed against him. It was a moment of pure connection, unspoken yet profound. He didn't need words. The comfort and understanding in Max's gaze said everything. Sarah and David watched silently, tears filling their eyes. This was more than a dog meeting a boy. It was a spark of hope, a bridge to a brighter future that they had feared might never come. Driving home that afternoon, David and Sarah reflected on the morning. "I can't believe how well it went," Sarah said softly. He actually smiled. Really smiled. David nodded, squeezing her hand. "This is just the beginning," he replied. "But I think we've taken the first step toward something incredible. Max could really help him, maybe even bring back the boy we used to know." That evening, Ethan slept with Max lying quietly beside his bed, a gentle warmth providing comfort. For the first time in months, he felt a sense of calm and security. He wasn't alone anymore. There was a companion, a friend, and perhaps even a guide for the days ahead. Sarah and David peeked in before bed, hearts full of cautious optimism. They knew there would be challenges ahead, that progress wouldn't be instant. But for the first time in a long time, they believed that transformation was possible. The arrival of Max was more than a simple introduction. It was the opening of a new chapter for the Roberts family. It marked the beginning of hope, connection, and the slow but steady journey toward healing. And although no one could predict exactly what would happen next, one thing was clear. Ethan had found a friend, and with that friend came the promise of joy, laughter, and life moving forward once again. Days turned into weeks, and Max became a quiet but powerful presence in the Roberts home. At first, Ethan approached the dog cautiously, unsure of what to expect. But Max, with his calm and gentle nature, seemed to understand the boy's hesitation. Every morning he would wait patiently at Ethan's side, tail wagging slowly, his eyes attentive and warm. The boy, who had spent months withdrawn and silent, began to show small but meaningful signs of engagement. He reached out to Max without prompting, offering pats, soft scratches behind the ears, and even quiet words of conversation. Sarah and David watched this transformation with a mixture of awe and relief. They remembered the boy who had spent hours staring at the ceiling, lost in his own world, and now they saw laughter in his eyes, tiny smiles on his lips. The first time Ethan laughed freely in weeks, it was because Max had nudged him playfully with his nose while attempting to retrieve a blanket that had slipped from the bed. That small, joyful moment felt monumental, a turning point that signaled the beginning of real change. Max's training made this progress possible. He had been taught to respond to Ethan's physical needs, but also to sense emotional states. On days when Ethan was frustrated with therapy exercises, Max would nuzzle him gently, resting his head on the boy's lap as if to say, "I'm here. You're not alone." These moments, though simple, had a profound effect. Ethan began to push himself a little further, attempting exercises he had previously avoided. Max became more than a companion. He became a motivator, a source of encouragement and a bridge back to life. The family quickly developed routines that incorporated Max into daily activities. In the mornings, Ethan would ask Max to fetch small objects for him, such as a book or a cup of water. This not only helped Ethan feel a sense of independence, but also strengthened his coordination and hand movements. Physical therapy sessions became more enjoyable, with Max providing both assistance and motivation. When an exercise felt too difficult, Ethan would glance at Max, who would look back with encouraging eyes, and the boy would find the courage to try again. One afternoon, Sarah sat in the living room observing the scene. Ethan was working on stretching exercises with his physical therapist, Max, lying calmly at his side. As the boy struggled to lift his leg, Max gently pressed his body against Ethan's, offering stability and support. The therapist watched, nodding in approval. "This bond is incredible," she said. "He's responding in ways we didn't expect." The emotional support Max provides is just as important as the physical assistance. Even small victories became moments of celebration. One evening, Ethan successfully picked up a ball with Max's help, rolling it back and forth across the living room floor. He laughed, a sound so pure and genuine that it brought tears to his parents' eyes. "I did it, Mom. I really did it," he exclaimed, his face lighting up with pride. Sarah hugged him tightly, whispering words of encouragement and gratitude. David joined in, his voice choked with emotion. The house, once quiet and heavy, now echoed with joy, laughter, and a renewed sense of hope. Max also helped Ethan reconnect with his own emotions. The boy had spent months bottling up frustration, sadness, and even anger at his situation. But with Max, he felt safe expressing himself. Some days he would talk to the dog about his fears and worries, his voice soft and hesitant at first, but growing more confident over time. Max would sit quietly listening, occasionally nudging Ethan gently or resting his head on the boy's arm. These moments provided an outlet for emotions that had been trapped inside, helping Ethan process the challenges he faced and build resilience. Schoolwork, too, became more manageable with Max by his side. Before, Ethan had struggled to focus, distracted by feelings of frustration and isolation. But now, with Max nearby, he could concentrate better. The dog's presence provided comfort, reducing anxiety and creating a calm environment conducive to learning. Reading sessions became a shared activity. Ethan would read aloud while Max lay quietly, occasionally pawing gently at him as if to remind him that he was doing well. Sarah and David noticed a steady improvement in his mood, focus, and willingness to engage with daily tasks. The emotional connection between Ethan and Max extended beyond physical assistance. There were quiet evenings when the boy would rest in bed, Max curled beside him. Sometimes Ethan would close his eyes and talk to Max about dreams he once had, about soccer games, outdoor adventures, and future plans. Max would listen, his presence providing comfort and reassurance. The boy began to dream again, imagining possibilities instead of limitations. For Sarah and David, these moments were priceless. They could see their son slowly reclaiming a sense of normalcy and joy, something they had feared was lost forever. Family life, too, transformed. The Roberts household, once subdued and tense, became lively and full of warmth. Sarah and David found themselves laughing again at small interactions between Ethan and Max, the playful paw taps, the gentle nudges. The way Max would follow Ethan around the room as if protecting him from invisible dangers. Mealtimes became more interactive, with Max sitting nearby, adding to the sense of togetherness and family bonding. The couple realized that the dog was not only helping Ethan, but also restoring the emotional balance in the entire household. One particularly memorable afternoon illustrated the depth of their bond. Ethan had been struggling with a new therapy exercise that involved reaching and twisting, a movement that caused him frustration. He sighed heavily, feeling defeated. Max approached calmly, nudging him gently with his nose and placing a paw softly on Ethan's arm. The boy paused, looked at the dog, and suddenly felt a surge of determination. With Max's subtle encouragement, he attempted the movement again, and succeeded. Ethan's eyes sparkled with accomplishment, and he laughed, a sound that filled the room with warmth. Sarah and David exchanged glances, overwhelmed by the powerful impact of this quiet, loyal companion. Even outings outside the house became possibilities once more. With Max by his side, Ethan felt more confident and secure. Short walks around the yard or trips to nearby parks became adventures. Max provided stability for his wheelchair and helped him navigate small obstacles. Neighbors began to notice the change in Ethan, commenting on his improved mood and renewed energy. The shy, withdrawn teenager who had once hidden away in his room was beginning to reclaim his life. Step by step, with the support of his four-legged friend. The Roberts family also noticed a surprising effect. Max's presence seemed to strengthen the bond between them. Sarah and David, who had been consumed by worry and exhaustion, found moments of shared joy in observing Ethan's progress. They laughed together, cried together, and celebrated each small achievement. Max had not only become a source of hope for Ethan, but also a reminder to the parents that resilience and love could manifest in unexpected ways. Evenings were now filled with stories, games, and laughter. Ethan would play fetch with Max in the living room, his wheelchair moved to allow more space for interaction. Sarah and David would join in, cheering him on, their hearts lighter than they had been in months. The house, once quiet and somber, resonated with life again. For Ethan, Max had become more than a dog. He was a friend, a teacher, a motivator, and a source of unconditional love. As the weeks continued, Ethan's confidence grew. Physical therapy exercises became less daunting. Daily routines were easier to manage, and his emotional state stabilized. Max's intuitive understanding of Ethan's needs provided constant reassurance. The boy's laughter became a regular sound in the home, a melody that brought joy to his parents' hearts. The bond between them was undeniable, a silent partnership built on trust, patience, and love. Sarah and David often reflected on how far they had come. Just a month ago, the house had been filled with worry and tension, the future uncertain and heavy with despair. Now, with Max by Ethan's side, there was hope, resilience, and a renewed sense of life. They knew that challenges still lay ahead, that recovery and adaptation were ongoing processes. But for the first time in a long while, they believed that Ethan's happiness and well-being were within reach. Max had become a symbol of what was possible when love, patience, and support came together. He had transformed Ethan's days from monotony and sadness into moments of joy, laughter, and discovery. And as Ethan lay in bed one evening, Max curled beside him, The boy whispered softly. "Thank you, Max," his voice filled with sincerity and warmth. It was a simple phrase, but it carried the weight of months of struggle and the promise of a brighter future. As the weeks passed, the bond between Ethan and Max grew stronger, and the impact on the Roberts family became undeniable. The once quiet, heavy house now resonated with energy and warmth, a stark contrast to the days when silence and worry filled every room. Ethan's confidence was blossoming, and with it, a sense of independence that had seemed impossible just months before. Each day brought new challenges, but with Max by his side, Ethan faced them with determination and curiosity rather than fear and hesitation. Therapy sessions, which had once been moments of frustration and struggle, were now filled with laughter and small victories. Ethan had begun to anticipate Max's help, reaching for objects and performing exercises with greater focus and effort. Max, ever attentive, adjusted his position to offer support precisely when needed. If Ethan struggled to reach a ball or lift an item, Max would gently place it within reach or nudge him to encourage movement. The synergy between boy and dog was remarkable. Ethan began to rely not only on Max's physical assistance but also on his quiet, unwavering presence. One afternoon, the physical therapist introduced a new set of exercises designed to strengthen Ethan's upper body and improve coordination. Previously, such tasks had caused frustration and tears, but today, Ethan approached them with a mixture of excitement and focus. Max lay beside him, watching intently, ready to provide support. As Ethan lifted a weighted ball, Max nudged him gently, offering reassurance. The boy's lips curved into a smile, a mixture of pride and delight. Sarah and David, observing from the doorway, exchanged glances, tears glistening in their eyes. The transformation was no longer subtle, it was undeniable. Ethan's emotional growth was equally remarkable. He had spent months feeling isolated and defeated, but Max provided a safe outlet for his feelings. The boy would confide in the dog, speaking softly about fears, frustrations, and even small victories. Max listened patiently, never interrupting, never judging. Some evenings, Ethan would cry quietly into the dog's fur, releasing emotions that had built up over months of physical limitation and social isolation. Max's presence made these moments bearable, transforming pain into comfort and reassurance. Outside the home, the family began to explore new possibilities. Short outings to nearby parks became an adventure rather than a logistical challenge. Max helped Ethan navigate small obstacles and provided stability on uneven ground. Neighbors and friends, once uncertain about how to interact with a paralyzed teenager, now saw a boy who laughed, engaged, and radiated a sense of hope. For the first time in months, Ethan seemed to reclaim the life he had lost, and the Roberts family began to imagine a future that had once felt out of reach. One memorable morning, the family decided to organize a small backyard picnic to celebrate Ethan's progress. They spread a blanket on the grass, arranged snacks, and brought Max along for the occasion. Ethan, who had once been hesitant to leave his room, now maneuvered confidently in his wheelchair, assisted by Max. The dog guided him gently, nudging the wheelchair when necessary, and providing a steady presence throughout the picnic. As the sun shone warmly overhead, Ethan laughed freely, reaching for food, tossing a small ball to Max, and even sharing a few playful moments with his parents. It was a scene of simple joy, but for the Roberts family it felt monumental, a victory over months of struggle and despair. The emotional impact extended to Sarah and David as well. Caring for Ethan had been exhausting, both physically and mentally, and the arrival of Max provided a sense of relief and support that they had not realized they needed. The dog's presence allowed them to step back slightly, knowing that Ethan had a companion who was always attentive, patient, and supportive. They could see him thriving in ways they had not expected, and this brought a sense of hope and reassurance that had been absent for too long. Schoolwork and creative activities also flourished with Max's presence. Ethan began to engage in reading and writing, using his laptop to communicate with teachers and classmates. Max would sit nearby, providing a sense of calm and focus. On particularly challenging days, the dog's gentle nudges or reassuring presence encouraged Ethan to keep going, fostering resilience and perseverance. Sarah noted that Ethan was not only performing better academically, but was also showing renewed interest in hobbies he had abandoned after the accident, including drawing, music, and storytelling. Therapy sessions at home had also evolved into moments of playful engagement. Ethan and Max developed a routine of exercises that felt more like games than rehabilitation. The dog's natural energy and intuitive understanding of Ethan's needs made each session enjoyable rather than exhausting. The boy would laugh as Max nudged him to perform a task, and Max would respond with a playful tilt of the head or a gentle paw. These moments were more than fun. They were critical to Ethan's physical and emotional progress, reinforcing the bond between boy and dog. The family began to notice changes in Ethan's personality that went beyond physical therapy. He became more communicative, sharing thoughts, ideas, and jokes with his parents. He began initiating interactions with friends over video calls, and even expressed interest in participating in virtual group activities and online clubs. Max had provided not only support but also confidence, a foundation on which Ethan could rebuild his social and emotional life. The Roberts family realized that this bond was transforming more than daily routines. It was reshaping their son's identity and restoring a sense of possibility and hope. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Ethan and Max sat together in the living room, bathed in warm golden light. Ethan reached down and hugged the dog tightly, feeling the familiar warmth and loyalty that Max offered. "I'm glad you're here, Max," he whispered. The simplicity of the moment belied its significance. The boy, who had once felt trapped by his physical limitations, now experienced connection, comfort, and a sense of empowerment. For Sarah and David, observing this quiet exchange was deeply moving. They had witnessed a transformation that seemed almost miraculous, one born of patience, love, and the extraordinary bond between a boy and his dog. In the weeks that followed, Ethan's progress accelerated. He began attempting new exercises independently, encouraged by Max's presence and support. He even started to explore ways to assist with small household tasks, using his wheelchair with growing confidence and coordination. The dog continued to play a critical role, offering guidance, stability, and emotional reassurance at every step. The family marveled at the resilience and determination Ethan displayed, fueled by the unwavering loyalty and companionship of Max. Social interactions became easier as well. Ethan's friends began visiting more frequently, drawn by the news of his growing confidence and playful spirit. Max provided a comforting presence for visitors, helping to ease Ethan's anxiety and encouraging interaction. The boy's laughter and enthusiasm became contagious, transforming the atmosphere of the home into one of warmth, connection, and joy. Sarah and David felt a sense of fulfillment and gratitude that had seemed impossible in the months following Ethan's accident. The family's daily life, once defined by struggle and worry, now revolved around shared experiences, progress, and connection. Meals were filled with conversation, games, and laughter. Therapy sessions became opportunities for playful engagement and celebration of small victories. Even quiet evenings were filled with companionship as Ethan read, played, or simply rested with Max by his side. The dog's presence had become a cornerstone of their household, a source of stability, motivation, and joy that touched every aspect of their lives. As the fourth month with Max came to a close, the Roberts family reflected on the incredible journey they had experienced. From the quiet, heavy days of worry and despair to the lively, joyful moments filled with laughter and connection, the transformation was remarkable. Ethan's progress was not only physical but emotional, social, and psychological. Max had helped him reclaim a sense of independence, confidence, and joy that had been missing since the accident. The boy who had once withdrawn into silence and frustration was now engaged, playful, and resilient. The family also recognized the profound impact on themselves. Sarah and David, who had carried the weight of worry and exhaustion, now felt renewed energy and hope. Max had provided them with reassurance, support, and the opportunity to witness their son's transformation firsthand. They understood that healing was not linear, and challenges would still arise, but they had learned the power of patience, persistence, and the extraordinary potential of human-animal connection. One evening, as they gathered for dinner, the family shared stories of the day's small victories. Ethan recounted moments of laughter, playful interactions with Max, and even a successful attempt at a challenging exercise. Sarah and David listened with pride and gratitude, realizing that each day brought new opportunities for growth, connection, and joy. The house, once silent and somber, now echoed with life, warmth, and hope. Max lay quietly at Ethan's feet, ears twitching in response to the family's conversation, eyes alert yet calm. The dog had become more than a companion. He was a guide, a teacher, and a loyal friend who had touched the lives of the entire Roberts family. As the evening light faded, casting a golden glow over the room, the family sat together, bound by love, hope, and shared experience. Months had passed since Max first entered the Roberts home, and the transformation in their lives was nothing short of remarkable. Ethan, once withdrawn and frustrated by his paralysis, had grown into a more confident, joyful, and resilient young man. The house, once filled with quiet tension and worry, now resonated with laughter, energy, and warmth. Every day brought new moments of connection, growth, and hope, and the Roberts family could feel the extraordinary impact that Max had on their lives. One bright morning, Ethan woke up feeling unusually excited. He had been practicing a series of exercises with Max for several weeks, and today he felt stronger and more confident than ever. Max, sensing the boy's energy, bounded to his side, tail wagging, eyes bright and alert. The bond between them had grown so strong that it was difficult to separate where the dog's influence ended and Ethan's determination began. They were partners in every sense, a team that relied on trust, patience, and mutual understanding. Sarah and David watched as Ethan maneuvered through his morning routine. The boy moved with greater ease, guided subtly by Max. He reached for his water bottle without assistance, adjusted his position in bed with minimal effort, and even attempted a small stretch exercise that he had once thought impossible. Each movement, though small, was a triumph, evidence of the hard work, patience, and support that had brought them to this point. The parents exchanged a glance, eyes glistening with pride and relief. They could hardly believe how far their son had come. Therapy sessions had become both productive and enjoyable. The physical therapist noted significant improvement in Ethan's strength, flexibility, and coordination. But the most remarkable change was in his attitude. No longer did he approach exercises with frustration or resignation. Instead, he tackled each task with determination, often smiling and laughing as Max provided support and encouragement. The dog's presence had turned a difficult, sometimes painful process into a game of progress and achievement. Ethan's confidence extended beyond physical tasks. Social interactions, once a source of anxiety and stress, had blossomed into moments of connection and joy. He began video calling friends more frequently, sharing stories about Max and recounting his small daily victories. He even started planning virtual hangouts and group activities, eager to reconnect with peers who had drifted away during his recovery. For Sarah and David, witnessing their son reclaim his social life was both emotional and inspiring. They realized that Max had not only provided physical and emotional support, but had also reignited Ethan's sense of belonging and connection to the world. One afternoon, the family decided to take a special outing to a nearby park. It was a beautiful day, the sun shining warmly, birds chirping, and the air filled with the scent of blooming flowers. Ethan, now more confident in his wheelchair, prepared for the trip with Max at his side. The dog guided the wheelchair across uneven paths, helping Ethan navigate small obstacles and providing stability whenever needed. The boy's excitement was palpable. He laughed as Max nudged him playfully, wagged his tail, and seemed to share in the joy of exploration. At the park, Ethan attempted small physical challenges, such as reaching for items placed on low benches or practicing coordination exercises suggested by his therapist. Max was attentive throughout, offering assistance, encouragement, and comfort. Sarah and David watched, filled with awe at the progress they were witnessing. Their son was not only moving with greater skill, but was also smiling, laughing, and fully engaged in the world around him. For the first time in a long time, they felt a deep sense of hope for the future. The emotional growth that Ethan experienced was equally profound. He had spent months feeling trapped by his physical limitations, isolated from friends and overwhelmed by frustration and sadness. Max provided a safe space for the boy to express his emotions, whether through laughter, conversation, or quiet moments of reflection. Ethan began to articulate his feelings more openly, confiding in the dog about fears, dreams, and aspirations. Max listened patiently, never judging, never interrupting. The bond between them had become a source of emotional stability and strength, a foundation on which Ethan could build resilience and confidence. Family life had also changed dramatically. Meals were lively and filled with conversation, shared experiences, and laughter. Evenings were spent playing games, reading stories aloud, or simply enjoying each other's company with Max nearby. Sarah and David noticed that they too had transformed through this journey. They were less burdened by constant worry, more present in their interactions with Ethan, and more appreciative of the small joys that each day brought. Max had not only helped their son thrive, but had also restored a sense of harmony and happiness to the entire household. The Roberts family also discovered that the impact of Max extended to the community. Friends, neighbors, and extended family who had been unsure how to approach Ethan after the accident began visiting more often. They were drawn by the boy's renewed energy, confidence, and joy. Max's presence provided comfort and reassurance to visitors, making social interactions easier and more enjoyable. Ethan began to reconnect with people who had once been important in his life, rekindling friendships and building new connections. One particularly moving moment occurred during a small family celebration at home. Ethan had completed a challenging set of therapy exercises and was beaming with pride. Max lay beside him, ears alert, eyes watching every movement. Sarah and David held back tears as they observed the boy's joy and determination. It was a quiet, powerful moment that encapsulated months of struggle, patience, and growth. They realized that the journey was far from over, but the progress their son had made was extraordinary. Even in quiet moments, the bond between Ethan and Max was evident. In the evenings, Ethan would sit in his wheelchair, Max curled at his feet as he recounted stories from the day, shared his thoughts, or simply enjoyed the dog's presence. These moments of calm, connection, and companionship were vital to Ethan's emotional well-being. They reinforced a sense of safety, trust, and unconditional love, elements that had been missing since his accident. As the days turned into months, Ethan's progress continued steadily. He attempted more complex exercises, navigated new challenges with increasing confidence, and embraced opportunities for social interaction and personal growth. Max remained by his side, providing guidance, encouragement, and unwavering loyalty. The transformation was visible not only in Ethan's physical abilities, but also in his emotional state, social engagement, and overall outlook on life. Sarah and David often reflected on the journey they had undertaken. From the early days of worry, exhaustion, and despair to the current state of hope, laughter, and progress, the change had been profound. They understood that much of this transformation was due to Max, the dog who had become a friend, mentor, motivator, and source of unconditional love. His presence had sparked a series of positive changes that extended far beyond physical assistance, touching every aspect of their son's life. The family also recognized the broader lesson of their experience. Healing, they realized, was not just about medical treatment or therapy exercises. It was about connection, companionship, and the courage to embrace unconventional solutions. Max had provided all three, offering the Roberts family a renewed sense of possibility and the knowledge that even in the face of significant challenges, hope and transformation were possible. One evening, as the family gathered in the living room, Ethan hugged Max tightly, his face glowing with happiness. "Thank you for being here," he whispered, voice full of sincerity. Max rested his head gently on Ethan's shoulder, a quiet response that seemed to convey understanding, loyalty, and love. Sarah and David watched, overwhelmed with emotion, recognizing the profound bond that had developed and the remarkable impact it had on their lives. The Roberts family knew that challenges would still arise. Recovery, adaptation, and growth were ongoing processes. But with Max by Ethan's side, they felt prepared to face whatever the future held. The boy who had once felt trapped by his physical limitations was now empowered, confident, and engaged. The home that had once been heavy with worry and silence was now filled with laughter, energy, and love. The story of Ethan and Max was more than a tale of recovery. It was a testament to the power of patience, hope, and the extraordinary bond between humans and animals. Through companionship, encouragement, and unconditional love, Ethan had regained not only physical strength but also emotional resilience, social connection, and a renewed sense of joy. Max had become a hero in his own quiet way, changing the life of a young boy and restoring hope to a family who had once feared the future. As night fell and the house grew quiet, Ethan lay in bed with Max curled beside him. He closed his eyes, feeling safe, supported, and loved. The journey had been long and challenging, but the rewards were immense. In the silent companionship of his loyal friend, the boy found peace, confidence, and the courage to face each new day. Sarah and David watched from the doorway, hearts full, grateful for the remarkable gift that Max had brought into their lives. The Roberts family had learned an invaluable lesson. Even in the face of adversity, hope could be nurtured, joy could be restored, and lives could be transformed through love, patience, and companionship. And for